So this is our regular meeting of November 10th. See the agenda. Consent agenda and the regular. Do I have any to move the consent agenda?
So moved.
That's Councillor Span moving that the consent agenda be adopted as presented. I'll call the question. Please vote. And that is unanimous. That moves us then to the remainder of the agenda. Are there any additions that need to be added to the regular agenda? Councillor Span, did you have an addition? No. There being no changes, then I would entertain a motion to accept the regular agenda as presented.
Yes,
Sorry, Councillor Contenti.
yes, I so move we adopt the regular agenda as presented.
I see no further comments on that, so I will call the question. Please go ahead and vote. And that is also passed unanimously. All right, seeing as how we do not have open forum presentations or public hearings today, we will move directly to requests for decision. 6.1 is bylaw 370.6. It's a council procedural bylaw. This is an amendment that's up for third reading. Just pulling it up there. CAO Gowdy, is this you that will be speaking to this item?
Certainly. This evening, we have a third reading of a bylaw that was given, and I should just say, echo thing happened. Get it sounding a little better, but so this evening we have the third reading of a bylaw that was given the first two readings prior to the election. The main component of this procedural bylaw update is to address the situation where you have multiple, or where you have councillors on city boards, commissions, committees, that sort of thing, who are then elected as councillors, where there can be some conflict between confusion about which council member is appointed versus which one's there as a public member, and we've worked through it being both, but to be honest, there has been some over time where the groups themselves are unclear what each member's role is and whether they're city councillor or here. So this update addresses that situation by saying where it is a city created board, that person, upon being elected, automatically gives up their seat, or sorry, their public seat on that. There are a couple of exceptions, notably Home Police Commission, that appointments to the police commissions are governed by the Police Act of Alberta, which supersedes any municipal bylaws. So specifically, Councillor Dykeslag has an existing appointment to the end of the year. There is one remaining meeting in December where you will volunteer member. Police Act does not, has very narrow provisions for revoking the appointment of commission member. It's for cause specific. Obviously, this is outside of that. Upon passing third reading, you will give up all your volunteer seats on CSS. And that's just to prevent that confusion element. there is a lot of detail in procedural bylaw 370 that governs will want to become familiar with it, and you may ultimately. I would not recommend this bylaw because the whole purpose of having a first reading not debated is to introduce something to council, or sorry, to the community. We're going to be talking about this. Second reading is about. Third reading is really saying the majority of us are all right with where we've landed after this reading. So make significant changes. Totally new change that was not second reading, third reading, denies the public the so are other areas that aren't addressed with this procedural bylaw amendment later in a separate. Also a couple of related to VoIP code to ATI. That answer questions that you might have about the content of the bylaw and support your deliberation on this item.
Do we have any questions for CL item? Councillor Goings.
Thank you, Mayor Hibbs. I'm looking to find out if there's a better way that we can communicate the roles between a council member on a board that's appointed citizen. I personally see the amendment as kind of restricting the volunteerism of, it kind of goes against our innate wanting to serve our community in that. So I was just looking for clarification on that. There's a different way instead of just having a blanket ban on council members. If we could communicate it in a different way to these boards, if that would help.
Certainly you could. It says Councillor X has been board. Their board, but they're a private citizen. Certainly that.
Thank you.
CEO Gowdy, I just had a question. You had mentioned in the presentation for this memo about committees or boards that are created by the city. And so I was just curious, not all committees that we have appointments to are necessarily created by the city. There might be situations where it's an outside entity that creates their own committee and has now invited for a member to be appointed from city council. Does this bylaw amendment see any difference between those two situations, or is it in fact any time that has a council appointee?
It would be specifically for city commissions, boards, or committees, so those created by the city. Section 6.7 will be replaced with a, it says a council member shall not be appointed as a city commission.
Any other questions on this specifically? Do we have a list? I don't recall seeing one in this package that actually refers to the internal versus the recent agenda package would have that. Or if this bylaw is differentiated. Worth reviewing, if perhaps I could get pulled up on what the internal versus. If I understood correctly, the external would not be subject to this. Is that something that we can throw up on the?
Courtney Post, are you managing? Screen?
I sent a link to.
The ones that would be excluded would be the external commission boards and committees, the ones that obviously have public members as well as, otherwise some of the external ones are council only. Lacombe Regional Airport, Berman School Business Advisory Board, Echo Lacombe Association, Central Alberta Regional Trails Initiative, Lacombe District Chamber of Commerce, Lacombe District Family and Community Support Services, Lacombe Days, Lacombe Public Library, and Lacombe Regional Tourism. So if I'm understanding correctly, those ones would be able to have potentially that more than one council member, one acting as the official appointee and one could be there or more could be there as public. There would be the internal, so this is what the change in bylaw would refer to then, these specific. Is that clear? So in the case of FCSS, would be able to be 2 council members or more on that board.
Yes, I'm sorry. I had that, obviously.
I don't mean to belabor the point, but I do think that it's important that we understand the difference between the 2 categories. So if you're a member on these committees as a member of council appointed, you would be the only member of council present on those. The other ones that I referred to earlier would potentially be the only one, but you may not be. CEO Gowdy.
Other than there are.
Of course, and I
Conversation.
appreciate that. Yes, I did forget to point that out. All right, I don't have any further questions. Is there anybody else that has any further questions before we are third reading? Top of the memo is the recommended motion if someone is willing to. Councillor Dyke-Slag.
That council gives third reading to the procedural bylaw amendment.
Further lights on, I will call the question. Please go ahead and vote. Unanimous, thank you. Item then 6.2, bylaw 381.2, business bylaw amendment for third reading. CO Gowdy as well.
Actually, Director Pichet is going to.
Director Pichet, you have the floor.
Mayor Hibbs, and good evening, Council. This evening, administration is proposing an amendment to the business license bylaw for third reading. First and second reading were approved on October 14th, 2025. Because this is a new council, I'm going to give a background information about this amendment. And hopefully, if all goes well, we'll get third reading. So the City of Lacomb's business license bylaw 381 sets the framework for licensing businesses operating within the municipality. As our community grows and diversifies, administration has identified opportunities to modernize the bylaw to better support event organizers, markets, and businesses that operate only part of the year. The proposed amending bylaw 381.2 includes updates to the language, improved consistency throughout, and some minor grammatical corrections to clarify some of the clauses. There's also an update to the fee schedule, and the penalties are also being proposed. So some of the current challenges is that some of the markets or special events, excuse me, where multiple vendors participate for only a few days or for a seasonal business that operates for just a few months each year, they're required to pay a full year's business license. So what's being proposed is that we add two different categories to the current bylaw. One is a multi-vendor business license, and the second is a seasonal business license. So the multi-vendor business license would allow an organizer or operator or property owner to hold a single license that will cover multiple vendors related business at a specific event or location. This approach is ideal for farmers markets, cultural festivals, or other community events where many vendors are brought together under one organizer. For example, the farmers market operator could, or a farmers market operator could obtain a multi-vendor license covering all participating vendors, or a festival could, organizer could include food trucks, artisan booths, and amusements under one license. Currently, the vendors under the Lacombe Farmers Market is exempt from requiring business license, but all other markets are not. At the time when this bylaw was originally drafted, there was only one market in Lacombe, and currently there are multiple. The amendment proposes extending that exemption to all markets in the city for fairness and consistency. Administration has consulted with community groups, event organizers, and market coordinators to understand their needs. There's been feedback that showed strong support with a more flexible and streamlined process, especially from the volunteer organizers who face administrative challenges managing dozens of short-term vendors. This new model simplifies compliance, reduces paperwork, and provides a single point of accountability for the city. It also helps avoid situations where vendors unintentionally operate without a license and then become frustrated when enforcement calls to action, and then they decide not to return in future years. Now, this doesn't stop vendors outside of those events or markets to come to the city on their own accord outside of an event, and they can get their own business license for selling food or goods independently as well. The second category being proposed is a seasonal business license. A seasonal business license is designed for operators that run less than 6 months each year. This includes like landscapers, produce stands, mobile vendors, or holiday businesses such as a Christmas tree lot. Seasonal licenses allow businesses to align their fees with actual operating periods while maintaining the same compliance standards. There's some other key changes that have been proposed in this bylaw. So under section 510, it has been revised to clarify that new businesses starting after July 1st will pay 50% of the annual fee. And this is only to apply to those businesses that are just starting operations, not that they're just starting at the beginning of. So that was always confusing. Sections 10 and 11 are updated to include a 5% penalty for late payments, now defined clearly in Schedule A, the fee schedule. And then under the fee schedule, it has been updated for the first time since 2013. There's been some proposed rates to consider inflation, the municipal comparators for the municipal comparators, and removal of separate economic development officer surcharges. And then there's the penalty schedule, Schedule B, and that now includes a second and third offense level, allowing for escalating penalties for repeat violations. When we reviewed the fees with the municipal comparators, it was only ourselves and the town of Black Falls that apply at a separate economic development surcharge. All other have flat rate structures. The proposed adjustments balances fairness, competitiveness, and cost recovery. In summary, the amendments modernizes the business license bylaw, improves flexibility for seasonal and event-based businesses, and enhance administrative clarity and fairness. Administration recommends that council provides third reading to the business license bylaw 381.2 to add the multi-vendor and seasonal business license categories, update language and clarify intent in key sections, and update the fee and penalty schedules. Administration is here to support you in your deliberations. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Piche. Are there any questions prior to third reading? Mr. Contenti.
Thank you, Mayor Hibbs. Just a question to Director Piche. Or is that seasonal too? Buy it and they're good. Or is it a
I guess that's one of the things. If it's a cultural event, it would be the one time for that cultural event. The cost that or the price that we're putting it at or marketing it at will be about $100 per event. So it's actually a fairly good sort of bang for your buck, I guess is the thing in that regard. For the farmers market, if they have a normal schedule, so say every Thursday from May to October, then it would be a one-time license because they'll be in the same location all the time. That is one of the things that we look at is the location as well as how often they run the schedule.
Yes.
So they said, okay. The one, or is that full license good for these?
That would be a separate one.
Oh.
In the bylaw, it does state the location as being part of the application process.
Any further questions? Is someone prepared to make that motion? Councillor Proud.
I move that council give third reading of bylaw 381.2, the business license bylaw amendment as presented.
Being no further lights, I would call the question and please vote. All green, that is a unanimous decision. Thank you. That will move us then to our final item under request for decision, 6.3. Bylaw 533, natural gas distribution franchise agreement. This is for second and possibly third reading. It appears that Director Piche is also going to be speaking to this item, so I would invite you to take.
Your Hibbs. This evening, administration is presenting bylaw 533, the natural gas distribution franchise agreement renewal for second and third. To provide a bit of background, under the Municipal Government Act, the municipalities can grant a public utility franchise to non-municipal utilities. These agreements give the utility exclusive rights to deliver within the municipality for a set term not exceeding 20 years, but it can be renewed. The City of Lacombe has had natural gas franchise with ATCO Gas and its since 1947. 6 separate franchise agreements have been entered into since then, with amendments over time. The current agreement, approved through bylaw 412 in 2015, remains in effect until the new agreement is signed or the city opts to purchase the gas distribution system. The proposed renewal is based on a standard template developed by AltaGas, ATCO, and the Alberta Municipalities Association. Process to go through this is a little complex, but I think we've nailed it down. We had first reading of bylaw 533. It initiates the renewal process, and that occurred on August 11th. The city then had to advertise a notice of application to the Alberta Utilities Commission, and there is a 14-day advertisement process on that. Then we had to wait 45 days for any feedback or objections from the advertising period. And then any of those would have been submitted to the AUC. I am able to report that there was no feedback or objections during that advertisement period. The agreement was approved by the AUC on October 14th and has now been returned back to council for second. If approved, the agreement will have to be fully executed and signed copies of the bylaw must be sent back to ATCO, and then ATCO will send the official documents onto the AUC. The agreement is a 10-year term, ATCO retaining exclusive rights to deliver natural gas in Lacombe. Currently, our franchise fee is at 29.25% and proposed to increase to 31% in 2026, which is the median of the municipal comparators. ATCO will continue to pay linear tax on infrastructure, and ATCO is to provide the core natural gas services. No additional services are proposed. The city will retain first rights of refusal to propose the gas system. So if we don't enter into it, and then relocation costs will remain with the requesting party, which would be us, unless the city provides 12 months notice, shifting costs over to ATCO. The city will maintain joint use rights in the right of ways. So the main changes for the new agreement is basically the start and termination dates, the updated rate of the franchise rate at commencement, that would be the 31%, and then just updated contact information for both parties. The financial implications of changing the rate will impact the average household by approximately 91 cents monthly. Now that doesn't mean it's only 91 cents. It means that the change from what it is currently at will increase 90 cents. The 2026 estimate revenue will approximately be $1,236,000, and that would be going into our operating. The revenues increase are tied to the growth of customer growth and the daily rate adjustments based on the median rates of the city's municipal comparators and not the actual. So it is administration's recommendation of second and third reading of bylaw 533, the natural gas distribution franchise. Administration is here to support you in your deliberations on this decision.
Thank you. Do we have any questions on second reading of bylaw 533? Does not appear to be. Do we have anybody that's prepared to move second reading of bylaw 533? Councillor Span.
I did have a question on that increase from 29.25 to 31%. What kind of additional revenue?
The difference of that revenue would be $71,316.
Was the reason for making that increase only because other communities? Or other reasons?
This is our current practice, is that the median rate of.
This is a little bit of an unusual year because this is coming with the actual agreement. Otherwise, on an annual basis, this will come to council. And following our policy, environmental scan of our comparators will occur and a new recommendation will come from administration to either keep the rate as is or adjust it as based on what the fee or what the comparators will tell us that would be the new median. So this just happens to be doing sort of two things at once. So we're entering into a new agreement, but at the same time, based on that environmental scan, we can see that in theory, we're below what the median is. So according to our policy, that requires resetting now to 31. I believe this is the one where a full rate would be 35%, if I recall correctly. So like I said, this is something that we will do annually up and until we meet that max. And then at that point, this will no longer be a discussion. But at this point, we aren't at the maximum. So that's hence why we're having this discussion.
To Mayor Hibbs, so when we're looking at approving this or we're looking at discussion on this, it's not locked in for the next.
That's correct. So like I said, that we will look at this on an annual basis. We're required to as per our policy to be compliant to look at it. Doesn't necessarily mean we have to go with it, but to be compliant with our current policy, we will look at that rate on an annual basis. This is just the one that will be embedded in the initial contract, but that doesn't stop us or hinder us making changes. And I would include that even could possibly go down, which we have seen once in my 8 years. I don't believe it was for this utility specifically, but there has been a time where that has happened.
And to CAO Gowdy through Mayor Hibbs, do we have any businesses that would be disproportionately impacted by this? You mentioned the 90 cents, but there are businesses in our community heavily using these utilities, they would be impacted dramatically more.
Yeah, I think the 91 cents. Certainly if you are. Is one of the arguments for the inclusion of franchise fees actually is that some exempt from property taxation.
Anybody that's prepared to make that motion for second reading? Councillor DeBresser.
Yeah, I'll move that council give second reading to bylaw 533. Distribution franchise.
See no further lights. I will call the question. Please go ahead and vote. And that is unanimous. You will see that we also have a recommended motion of third reading on this same bylaw. Do I have anybody that's prepared to make that? Councillor Goings.
I move that council give third reading of bylaw 533, natural gas distribution franchise agreement.
And again, I see no lights, so I will call the question. Please go ahead and vote. And that is also unanimous. Thank you. Motion all three readings on that bylaw have passed. That does take us to the end of our requests for decision. Our next item will be in camera. Just prior to that, just a quick review of the next meetings of council. So our next regular meeting of council will be the 28th of November, or sorry, 24th of November. Then December 15th, you may recall that that one was moved, so make sure that it's accurately put in your calendar. And then after the new year, our first regular meeting will be January 12th. To move into in camera, which is a non-public portion of our meeting, I'll need a motion for that, please. Councillor Dykslæg.
I move that we move into in camera at 6:06 PM.
I'll call the question. Please vote. And that has passed unanimously. I would ask those that are not part of the meeting to please vacate the chambers.